Hi guys, so today we're going to be talking about figurative language within the poem My Cemetery for Taking. So a little bit of information. Sure, we remember in connotation we had to do some history, some background information. This text actually comes with a little bit of background that hasn't been put on your slides, so you can refer back to this video to read this top section here. Just pause it so that you can read it. Now, when we're talking about figurative language, in poetry, this is brought up a lot. Because the poet only has a certain number of words that they're wanting to use in order to describe a feeling, emotion, event, story, the author has to choose specific words to do so. And in doing that, they usually use figurative language. So figurative language or literary devices are what we're going to be focusing on today. So here in front of you, you have My Ceremony for Taking, and I'm kind of going to go over a few of the types of figurative language that I'm actually asking you guys to focus on. On your website, you will see only 4 examples, and we're going to go over those 4 examples so that you're not overwhelmed. So let's go through this poem. Let's just looking at this first stanza here. No one told me how it should be, these steps for taking. Some things I know without being told. The words told to me ended my family. The words I told burned my family's death scaffold. Those things we say when we are hurt to hurt. So I'm going to stop right there and just look at this first paragraph. And though there are many examples of different figurative language throughout this text, I'm only going to give you one example for each so that you are aware of what they are, and then you can find some more on your own. So here, as you can see, I have underlined, burned my family's death scaffold. So this I consider to be imagery. Remember, imagery is going to be words that are used that appeal to the 5 senses. Those senses are touch, taste, smell, see, and hear. Okay, and so in this case, we're using the words burned my family's death scaffold. And so if I'm appealing to my senses, not only can I feel the heat, but I can also see the flames burning the family's death scaffold. And if you've looked up the word scaffold, like you should have in connotation, we know that this is kind of like a support system. The literal meaning of the word scaffold is a support structure to hold people or things, but in this case, the way it's being used figuratively, it really just means a support system. So the family support system. And what is happening here is that the author is saying that the words that were told, that she told, rather, burned the family's death scaffold, which basically means ruined it, shot it down, crushed it to nothing, so on and so forth. Okay, when we use imagery like this, it helps the reader truly see what the author or speaker is trying to do, and it definitely helps with connotation, and it helps with understanding what the poem is saying. So in your assignment, you will be coming up with an example, like in this case, this is an example of imagery, and you will tell me what the line is, and I would type in burned from my family's death scaffold, and then it says meaning, so you're going to tell me the meaning of it is basically that the word she told kind of crushed the support system and no longer existed. Okay, so let's move on to the second stanza. I wanted to take pieces of my ancestors' homes with me, the way some homelands are sacred, the way some carry their birth dirt for protection, but these locations are revered, and for me, the taking was blasphemous. So as you can see here, I underlined the words homelands are sacred. I'm going to give you a couple of seconds, and I want you to kind of think, what figurative language do you think this could be? All right, so hopefully you guys said metaphor, which would be accurate, because metaphor is comparing two things, not using like or as, right? And so basically this is saying that the homelands are sacred, kind of like sacred being like churches. And so if the homelands are sacred, then the homelands are like churches, right? They are sacred and they mean something, right? So for this one, I would say homelands are sacred. The meaning of it is that the author is comparing homelands to something like a church, saying that they are sacred like a church. Okay, again, you're going to look through the rest of the text to find another example of metaphor and put that information in there. All right, so we're going to move on to the next paragraph. My parents split and I felt absolutely halved, though what was left of me was unclear. I needed a ceremony. It had to require pain, a sacrifice. It had to be missed. Okay, so in this paragraph, in this stanza, I underlined the words absolutely halved. And for this is a hyperbole, which is an extreme exaggeration. Basically, it means that the information that's given is so exaggerated that if you were to read it in a literal sense, it's completely impossible. However, because we're reading it in a figurative sense, right, we're giving another meaning to it. Absolutely halved would be an extreme exaggeration, basically saying that because her parents split, she felt like she was completely torn into two pieces and didn't know what to do with it. Okay, so again, you would write absolutely halved as your line, and then what does it mean? It means that she felt like she was torn into two pieces when her parents split. Okay, so we're starting to kind of get an idea of what each of these stanzas mean just by looking at these examples, one in each stanza. As more examples come about, you will definitely see more meaning underneath it. Okay, the last one I'm going to go over with you is alliteration. I'm going to move on to this last stanza. There is another couple of things in the fourth stanza, but I want you guys to find them. So let's move on to the last stanza. Choctaws were known for hair, long, thick, honor banner. I gave of myself. My hair was my thanks, parts of me pulled out, white root waving, a lock, not just a strand, pressed into the dirt I took for payment, to leave part of myself. So alliteration is when you have the same sound or consonant closely together within the same couple of lines within a stanza, right? So in this case, I'm focusing on these lines here that are underlined, white root waving. Our alliteration there is with the W because white and waving, okay? And so we would write white root waving. And then for our meaning is we're just kind of showing that the hair that was being pulled out it's kind of like waving like a white flag, right? Giving up, throwing that out there, throwing it in, throwing in the towel kind of thing, right? But because she pulled out her hair, right, it's a part of her is giving up and just kind of saying, I'm done, mercy, and whatnot. So when we look at the different types of figurative language within a text, we know that them all added together helps us understand what the meaning of the poem is. Okay, so now that you kind of have a little bit of an introduction into what each of these pieces of figurative language look like and how to look for them within the poem, right? You are going to now do your assignment where you now find other examples. So please don't use the ones that I gave you, but find other examples of these figurative language pieces and make sure that you are able to tell me what that piece of figurative language means. And hopefully it will help you understand the poem just a little bit more. Okay? Remember that if you have any questions, reach out to me and I will be happy to help you.